I'd like to call to order the January 11th, 2018 meeting of the Council Strategic Planning Committee. Roll call, Madam Secretary. Let it show that all members are present this afternoon except Councilman Cagnolati and Johnson. But we do have a quorum, so we will proceed. Item number 2 is our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask everyone to please rise. Our prayer this evening will be led by Mr. Philip Guppold. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Yeah, she's got
just starting. Terrible. Jeez. I'll tell you about it more later. Okay, I want to first of all thank everyone for coming this afternoon. We're still quasi, I guess, if you will, in the Christmas/New Year's holiday season. So I know probably a lot of you have better things to be doing, but I think it is important, and I'm glad you're here to support what it is your government is or is not to do in your behalf. Our third item on the agenda this afternoon, and let me also recognize we have a dignitary in our audience this afternoon, Todd Lambert, Councilman Lambert in the back. We thank you, sir, for coming. Our third item is the public comment period. Anyone that wishes to speak on the one lone item that we're going to have this afternoon? Oh, I'm sorry. How could I do that to you, Leroy? We had a card color problem there, and I even fixed that on your behalf. How bad of me and how foolish. Welcome, the Mayor of Donaldsonville, ladies and gentlemen. Public comment period again is if you have something you want to say on a lone item, we'll introduce in a moment. And you haven't done so, please fill out a card. Let me remind you, as we still are getting used to this quasi-new system, it's not totally new anymore. A red card means that you're against the proposition before us this evening. A green card would mean that you support it. Without further ado, then, item number 4 is the approval of our December 14th, 2017 Strategic Planning Committee meetings. Motion by Mr. Lawler, second by Mr. Joseph to approve those minutes. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. And as I said, our only item number 5, we want to be out of here pretty quick this evening. And please, ladies and gentlemen, this is a discussion, and a discussion only, it's what purposely was listed that way, of having all regularly scheduled meetings, henceforth, of the governing authority. That's a word that's a synonym actually for the parish council, at the Gonzales Court House East, which is where we all are right now. And anything we do or don't do will go in the form of being either nothing or a recommendation only to the full council for the larger body to then decide whether or not we are to continue in the status quo, holding one monthly meeting in Donaldsonville, or elimination of the same, or any variation of that theme. I don't know if this will come up, but I'm hearing a lot of people. In fact, I'll just go ahead and say it right now as a form of introduction before we get to public comment. I attended the I-10 widening today. That's great news, by the way, for all of us, at least up here in the Perryville area, where the state intends to widen the road from Highway 73 all the way to Highland Road, 3 lanes going and 3 lanes coming. It's supposed to be about a 2-year project. It's a $70-some-odd million project, long time coming, and it ought to help a lot on our traffic, and it will greatly affect my district because it's the beginning and ending of pretty much my boundaries, Highway 73 and Perkins Road or Highland Road. But at that meeting, a lot of dignitaries were there, not the least of which was Senator Eddie Lambert. And when I was discussing this afternoon's venue with him here at Strategic Planning, he said, have you all ever considered a potential compromise? And of course the answer to that is no, because we haven't even met on it yet. That maybe if people feel strongly on both sides of this issue that maybe that could be a plan where meetings could be alternated and so forth in various fashions. So I'll just throw that out for people as they speak and so forth tonight to consider, as well as for my colleagues that are joining me up here tonight on the dais. Okay, so public comment period, we'll move right into that. Our first speaker this afternoon is going to be a speaker against the item, and that's Mayor Leroy Sullivan. And again, Mayor, I apologize for not recognizing you straight away.
That's okay. And to Councilman Lambert, who just walked out, you know, he is a dignitary because he's probably the longest-standing member on the parish council.
He is indeed.
From many, many years ago, him being a part of the parish council. I guess first I'll start off by asking the question, why is it even an issue or the question is being brought up about the possibility of not having meetings on the west bank of Ascension Parish?
Aaron, do you want to do that? I apologize, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Joseph is putting the timer. You might see it in front of you.
Okay.
I should have mentioned, too, everybody has 3 minutes from the public to address us this evening. But what we'll do, since once again I was derelict in all of my duties, we're going to start over from scratch with you.
Okay, and normally when we do...
So you have a full 3 minutes.
When we have mistakes like that over on the West Bank for the city council meeting, we give them 6 minutes, okay?
I don't need to remind you you're on the East Bank, sir.
How well do I know? So I was asking the question, why was it even an issue? But since I only have 3 minutes, I'll just get into the point at hand. I think that it is a slap in the face to the residents of the West Bank of Ascension Parish to even have any dialogue about not having meetings on the West Bank of Ascension Parish. Donaldsonville is the parish seat, as we all know, and although all of the municipalities, buildings, all of the growth is happening on the East Bank, Donaldsonville is still the parish seat. And I hear all the time that, well, you have only 9 to 10% of the population on the West Bank. You know, and well, you have a lot of poverty, or you have this and you have that. The Bible tells us that the poor is going to be with us always. But that doesn't mean that you have to neglect those that are less fortunate than some of us are. What we need to do is try to embrace the people and get them more involved. Why would you not want to have meetings on the West Bank of Ascension Parish when we say Ascension Parish? So why? I mean, it's been like that. So what's triggering the change of wanting to not have meetings on the West Bank of Ascension Parish? I'm 100% against it. I think that it is wrong, and I think that really there should not be even a conversation about changing that. If y'all want to have meetings somewhere else, you know, that's fine too. But I think that you shouldn't neglect the West Bank of Ascension Parish. We're meeting right now in the heart of Gonzales. Everything that the parish of Ascension do, it appears like it happens in the city limits of Donaldsonville. And I just think that is...
The city limits of Gonzales.
Of Gonzales, right. City limits of Gonzales. And I just think that is wrong. I think that more consideration should be given to the West Bank and specifically the city of Donaldsonville. There was a lot of money spent to remodel the courthouse. Everybody talk about how gorgeous it is and what a gem it is, and yet no one wants to use it. I think that this issue should be laid to rest, and y'all continue to have meetings on both sides of the river as you're doing now. And I'll answer any questions or anything, because I see I only have 27 seconds left.
Well, we're going to thank you. In the tradition of this committee, and all committees actually, East or West Banks, actually there are no committees on the West Bank, but let me rephrase that. The council, when it does that, is we hear all public comment first, sir, and then we have a discussion. But I'm sure if any of my colleagues or myself have a question for you, we will be calling you back up to the mic.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
Yes, sir. And one other thing I was thinking about the first time that I met you, Mr. Stadley, was over in Donaldsonville at a strategic planning and planning and zoning meeting at City Hall. You were on the board, I guess, before you became a councilman.
Right, Capital Regional Planning Commission.
That's
I do
correct.
remember it, and enjoyed the experience over there in Deville.
That's right. So continue coming over there. You enjoyed it, so it shouldn't be a problem coming over.
Right.
Thank you.
And I don't mean to correct you, but it's Satterley, okay?
All right.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next speaker this evening, speaking for the movement of all meetings to the East Bank will be Mr. Blake Babin. Oh, wait. He checked off the box. I'm getting used to that. He's against, he's for the movement, but he does not want to speak. I need to watch those little check boxes. Okay, here's a speaker then. So we'll just go ahead and do two in a row. Speaking against tonight's proposition is Tamika. Is it Miss Garrison? A little difficulty with your handwriting, dear. Garrison. Okay. And if I slaughter anything, please feel free to correct me. That's not my intention to do that.
That's okay. My name is Tamikio Garrison. I'm a former Ascension Parish Councilwoman for District 1, and I'm a current resident of Ascension Parish living outside of the city limits of Donaldsonville. I am not in agreement with having all of the regularly scheduled council meetings in Gonzales. Having one, as you stated earlier, out of all of the regularly scheduled meetings should not impose a significant hardship on the council, anyone on the agenda, or any citizen of Ascension Parish. It also allows, coming to Donaldsonville that one time a month, allows the council, the citizens, and others that happen to appear on the Donaldsonville agenda for the meeting to stimulate Donaldsonville's economy. I'm familiar with the fact that the council goes to the Grapevine after every meeting. So at least one time during that month, your trip to Donaldsonville, you get to stimulate our economy. It appears to be some type of organized divestment of all of the parish departments from the parish seat, and I am definitely against it. And finally, my question would be what the mayor started out with, and why is this even being addressed? Thank you.
And we thank you, Ms. Garrison. Okay, our next speaker will be speaking in support, Ms. Catherine Guppold.
Good evening, thank you. Tonight we're going to find out how committed at least 3 of our councilmen are to encouraging public participation in the political process by seeing their willingness to move council meetings from Donaldsonville to Gonzales. Is it unreasonable to expect that our elected officials in local government would work for the people? The elected elite in Ascension Parish are no different than the Washington elite. They think that they know what is best for the people. Why, how could the people possibly understand how difficult it is to solve the problems of our community? Never mind the fact that many of these problems were created by a dysfunctional government, disassociated from the people they should be serving. I would like to make the point that the meetings would not make any difference in offices that are already in Donaldsonville and staff of the parish that are serving in Donaldsonville. Those will continue to be the same. Is it unreasonable to expect that our elected officials would encourage public participation in the political process? I see 3 reasons to keep going across the Sunshine Bridge. 1, tradition. We've always done it that way. In a recent interview with the Weekly Citizen, Councilman Johnson made the following statement. He doesn't let the old way of doing things overshadow the best way, and he always looks for new methods to improve government. Number 2, keep growing inefficiency and additional expense. Didn't we just spend $210,000 on a study for efficiency in government locally? Just because we paid to do the study doesn't mean we should have to seriously consider the recommendations of the study. What a waste of taxpayer dollars. Number 3, encourage extended travel times and traffic congestion for the public and the staff. Heaven forbid that our elected officials would actually consider saving time and money and make it easier for the majority of the public to participate in the political process. Every lame argument only reinforces the truth that government is not here to work for the people, but against them. Government is not using tax dollars and solving problems, but only continuing their failed traditions under the guise of what is best for the public. Gentlemen, prove me wrong tonight and support this proposal to move all council meetings to Gonzales. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gopel. Our next speaker speaking in support tonight is Mr. Jeff Pettit.
Good evening, council members. I am in support of moving the meetings over here to the closer to the population center of the parish. I've been to meetings on both sides of the river numerous times. Generally, the public attendance is sparse, to put it mildly. Like to see more meetings. Just because it's always been in Donaldsonville, well, things change, and change is hard for people to accept. Prairieville was probably mostly cow pastures 20, 30 years ago. Now it's house after house after house, and we just have to recognize it's extremely difficult for people that work and live in Prairieville, if they wanted to attend a meeting, to have any chance of making it through the parish and across the bridge to do so. The other part of that is that I see that's not on the agenda, but I'm going to throw it out there. We have a registrar of voters office over there. We have an assessor's office over there. And 10% of our population lives there, yet 90% over here, and the disenfranchised part of our parish, and we are disenfranchising or making it difficult for our citizens to get government services, or making it more difficult. I understand we're under limitations from the state as far as putting another registrar of voters office up in Prairieville, a satellite office. If I read state law correctly, we're limited to 2 locations, here in Gonzales and one in Donaldsonville. I would really love to see early polling available to our residents in the Prairieville area. It's the more people we have participate in the political process, the better off we'll all be. Our parish council has special meetings all the time. West Ascension Drainage is a regularly scheduled meeting that's always held on the West Bank. East Ascension Drainage is always held on the East Bank. We have special finance meetings. We have special transportation meetings. We've had committee of the whole meetings on both sides of the river. Why can't, when something specifically and directly affects only or mainly the West Bank, then why don't we call those meetings over there? Why should anybody that wants to come for an East Bank item have to drive over to the West Bank? If we're saying it's always been that way, well, that can be changed by a vote of 8 members of the parish council to move the parish seat, put it to a vote of the voters, and see what the majority of the residents of Ascension Parish want to do. 8 votes. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Pettit. Our next speaker this evening in support of the item is Philip Guppelt. Philip, you didn't check either box whether you want to speak or not.
I love Donaldsonville and the West Bank. I don't want the discussion to turn into an East Bank versus West Bank sort of thing. It shouldn't be about bragging rights or status symbols. It should be about what's best for the parish, what's most efficient. Poor people in Prairieville, they don't get a single meeting where they live, and that has been where a lot of the growth has been. I am for more efforts to reach out and cooperate with the West Bank to bring them into a fuller sense of cooperation, to work together to provide essential services for the West Bank and the East Bank. This is simply a discussion about where to have meetings. And I think the answer should be where it's most convenient and efficient for everyone involved. Thank you.
And thank you, sir. And our last speaker this evening, before we get into the council committee's discussion, is Mr. Mike Latchlater. Actually, he says, he checked off, although I don't want to speak, I am present in support. So that was the last speaker. And Philip, if we could ask you then to go back up there and put the first visual on, we will progress here. Okay, so I think that'll work right there. I think everybody can see that. This is just a simple map of the parish of Ascension. All of the different colors you see are the various 11 districts, 10, of course, on the east side of the Mississippi River, and Donaldsonville you see down there at the bottom of the screen on the west bank. So we're going from north to south in that direction. And Gonzales, the intent of this is to sort of show that it's centrally located. Now, I realize those lines are as the crow flies. Automobiles can't exactly travel those paths, but I think the map nonetheless is illustrative about this argument about, well, if you help the people, as Mr. Guppel just said, in Prairieville, who don't have any meetings there at all, but have to go to Gonzales or DeVille, you can clearly see, and I can tell you this as a councilman and a voter in District 4 myself and a resident, yes, I have to leave my house about 4 p.m. in the afternoon to make the DeVille meetings. And barely get there in time for coffee and antechambers before we go on camera. I can leave my house as late as 5 o'clock, sometimes shortly thereafter, to leave from Prairieville to go to Gonzales. So sure, it's going to disenfranchise, or disadvantage the DeVille people some to have to come over to all meetings if we held them on the East Bank and Gonzales. But I would humbly submit that the distance they'll travel is much, much less than the people up in the northern parts of the parish map. Sitting, of course, to my left, your right, in that little orange area. Is that not you, Aaron? I think that's District 7 there.
Oddly shapen, yes.
Yes, and the little green slice where you actually see the 2 lines emanating from almost touches my home up in District 4. And then the light blue color, of course, would be Miss Casso's. So that's not the entire part of Prairieville. There are other folks that claim the 70769 zip code. I think it's 5 districts altogether. But it's clear to see in that map, too. Look at all the population center that you see, even north of Gonzales, and a little bit to a lesser extent, but still pretty populated in Gonzales per se and slightly south of that. And then you go through a whole bunch of sort of area that's still pretty devoid of a lot of development until you cross the Mississippi and get to Donaldsonville and see some development again. So again, this map is just to kind of show for many, many people who have been posting on media websites, on my own Facebook page, which is very active on this issue, as you might can imagine, that it is sort of centrally located. And Philip, if we could have the next visual, and then we'll get into our discussion. I have prepared, and it's in the councilman's packet, and for the audience to see. I hope y'all can see that. Actually, one of our new advantages here, you're going to see down the list a little bit, is, yes, you can see it because we have high-def screens here. And we also have, you're going to see electronic voting. We just upgraded some of the sound systems, of course, in Donaldsonville, but one of the arguments for centralizing it somewhere anyway is not to have redundancy of government equipment in 2 places and having crews go to 2 places and having all of our expert witnesses in the planning department and engineering department and, and you name it, drainage, just go to all these different meetings and all the travel associated with them. But just some quick bullets. And these are facts, okay? This has nothing to do with, as some of the speakers tonight said, tradition, obviously, or, bragging rights or trying to separate the East and West Bank residents in this parish, but it has everything to do, however, in my opinion, with efficiency. And let me just say, Mayor Sullivan, please, sir, I know you have stated that you thought that even considering this as a slap in the face to the people in the West Bank. I humbly submit to you, sir, that that was not the intention of myself as chair nor any member of this committee to do so. We obviously have constituents as well in Prairieville, Sorrento, Santa Monica, Gonzales, AC, Geismar, all around on the East Bank, in addition to the fine folks that you hold court over in Donaldsonville. But clearly, I think you would recognize not all people feel the same way about what's currently going on with the switching back and forth of these two meetings. And you can almost bet your hat on it that if you live in one of these other places that I just reeled off, you're more inclined to say, I'd rather have over here. It's easier for me. It's more convenient. I can get there quicker. Both meetings are at 6 p.m. Everybody gets off of work at 5 o'clock. It's very difficult. As I said, it takes me 2 hours. And of course, I'm gainfully unemployed. I'm retired, so I'm able to do that. I question how many meetings I'd be tardy or even have to miss if I wasn't to get over there, because it's quite a trip. In fact, I can tell you, round trip, it's in excess of 70 miles. I could almost drive to New Orleans in the same time. I could actually do it quicker than it takes me to go from Prairieville to DeVille, especially in rush hour traffic in the afternoon. Number one, 90% of the Ascension Parish residents, and these are facts, live east of the Mississippi River. 96% of the property tax is collected from East Bank residents. The city of Gonzales is centrally located. I just showed you that in the map. To the vast majority where that population is located in Ascension Parish. Councilman Joseph, sitting to my right, to your left, as you view us up here, has often said in public and privately that a residential subdivision has not even been built in the West Bank since 1973. I assure you that's not the case in Prairieville. I believe it was Mr. Pettit that mentioned just moments ago. We've gone from prairies, 25 cow pastures or whatever you call them, watch it, Jeff, 25 years ago, to house after house after house. That reminds me, and if you want to do it, you can Google up right now on Wikipedia to look at definition of Prairieville. And that's what it was named, because as people would pass over Highway 73, better known then as the Jefferson Highway, and look off to their left and right, they would see nothing but cow pastures. That is not the case. We're so dense. I'm surprised we haven't considered vertical housing. So that has obviously then put a strain on our infrastructure in terms of travel time to government meetings, particularly when you've got to cross over the Sunshine Bridge. Number 5 up there, significant reduction in travel time. So I was just talking about to and from meetings by the East Bank residents where the sizable majority of the public resides. Majority of the council members also live on the East Bank, more convenient for them to travel to and from council meetings. So that's just saying the same thing as the public, which that's what we are. This one's a big one to me, perhaps not to a lot of people, but you can see by all the gray and what little hair I have left on top of my head. And I must confess my eyesight is getting worse and worse. But it's scary for me at night to cross the Sunshine Bridge, which is unlighted. In fact, when it was being I guess it was sanded recently, and it had the big tents on it, and you couldn't even have the light of the moon. It was terrible. And I know this is something that I and Mr. Joseph have supported. The problem is there's a lot of things. We can't find the money for it, but it'd be nice if that bridge was lighted to at least increase the safety of driving on it during the nighttime. On the bottom, anticipated greater public attendance and participation at council meetings. I guess that's debatable. But I can tell you this, I've been serving for 6 years, and I have rarely, if ever, I'm just trying to rack my brain, seen anybody from the West Bank come over here to the East Bank to a meeting. I've seen West Bankers come to some West Bank meetings, but very selectively, like when Mr. Katawa would talk about the hospital or something like that. So I'm not sure if this would really be preventing him that way, but I can tell you this, we've had some barn burners over here. As examples, I would cite, I don't know, on the recreation side, the Gonzales Soccer Club and the turning of the fields over to those guys at Lamar Dixon, where 100 people or more came in here and dozens spoke. We've had similar things happen. In my own district, we've had 3 zoning instances I can think, actually 4 if you count Crawfish Aquatics recently, where 527 people signed a petition on the East Bank, and dozens spoke that night and so forth against that contract agreement. So I've seen some big crowds over here, but I do agree with Mr. Pettit, and probably some of my other councilmen are going to say this because I've heard them say it behind the scenes. Yes, we'd like to see it bigger in both places, but we certainly wouldn't like to see it worse. And Philip, if you could move that slightly up a little bit, young man, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. There's an issue, in my opinion, about public trust. Been around a long time. A lot of people believe, and this is whether they're right or wrong, that the residents can no longer claim, I believe that, issues are purposely, those that are what I call hot topic controversial, scheduled for DVille in terms of council meetings to avoid public scrutiny. If that is eliminated, of course, they can no longer claim that that's the case. Is it or not? I'll leave that to you to be the judge. More energy efficiency would occur. We talked about a lot of speakers tonight, efficiency for the public and for the council members to attend the meetings. We have parish-sponsored, which taxpayer money vehicles, and we have our personal vehicles, which we get no reimbursement for. But I guarantee it'd be a gasoline savings for me or any of my constituents that would want to go to from Pville to a DVille meeting. As I said, it's a 70-mile round trip. Auto wear and tear, oil changes, the safety issue I've already mentioned. The vehicular mileage just would be changed greatly. Now, I didn't put it on that map, but you can Google it up and MapQuest, whatever, and you can look at mileage and you can look at time spent in that triangular map. You take a look and see if you don't think there's major differences there. There would be a savings, in my opinion, in audiovisual specialist and equipment cost. That's our groups that broadcast these meetings live onto YouTube and so forth, as well as no longer need for equipment redundancy or upgrading of the same. That would be eliminated. I mentioned, I think, a little bit earlier, we just put in electronic voting here, which we don't have in DVille. We have the high-def quality screens now here so that you can see things like this, which unfortunately still in DVille you cannot. I know. I attend all of them all the time. Certain costs, or at least portions of them, arguably, those costs associated with parish employee participation, these are our experts at council meetings, would be greatly reduced. We wouldn't have expenses for redundant janitor crews, film crews, members of our finance, planning, transportation, and a whole host of other departments have to periodically cross across the Sunshine Bridge and attend those meetings. And this one, I hesitate to put it out there because a lot of people dislike this publication. I hope it helps more than hurts what I would call the cause for the East Bank. But I can't use words like this, although I'd like to. But just look at that string there: convenience, efficiency, fairness, utilitarianism, common sense, governmental accountability, transparency. All our presidents said secrets were effectively outlawed and so forth. So all these things dictate that the parish operations, as much as possible, actually should be conducted in Gonzales. And if you don't believe that, that's why the government complex was built in Gonzales and not DVille, and not in Prairieville. Our Santa our guys, Mar Sorrento, as well as the newly bonded out courthouse. Several tens of millions of dollars there. I would like to end with, I'm going to turn it over to my two colleagues. I could find no legal impediments in state law, our code of ordinance, HRC stands for the Homeroom Charter, or the ULDC, Unified Land Development Code, that requires a monthly council meeting in DVille. I think it is largely, what several speakers indicated tonight, a matter of tradition. And while I really appreciate and respect and love tradition and history and so forth, I'm probably a bigger proponent of efficiency. With that said, we're going to move to, I don't know, we alternate every time. I'm not sure which side I'm on this particular month. Sounds like Mr. Lawler wants you, Mr. Joseph, to go first.
No comment.
Mr. Lawler.
I've got no comments. I'll move to adjourn.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Let's get him straight. You made the motion?
I made the motion. He made the
And
second.
it's been moved by Mr. Lawler and second by Mr. Joseph, not to consider this issue at all. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any objection? Hearing none. That motion passed. I guess it was a dual motion to adjourn as well, or just?
Motion adjourned, huh?
Yeah, I'll second that.
And a second, so we're adjourned.